So do you know if there are, we got a quorum, right? So the
You
other,
have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have a quorum, and it is not yet 7 o'clock.
okay, we got one more minute from what I can tell.
Oh, part
Dan
two.
is,
Dan is probably in the L&O meeting.
Okay,
I think we can wait a minute and then grab him.
okay.
Says a dollar me.
And how about Mike? Is coming, Mike Flash?
I have not heard. But it is 7 now.
3, 4, 5. There's just 5 of us?
Okay, well, it's 7 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting of Middleton Plan Commission for Tuesday, March 10th, 2022 order. And the first item on the agenda is the roll call.
Commissioner Tyson.
Here.
Slavish is not here. Murray.
Here.
Ramsey is not here at the moment.
Be here in a minute.
Farrar.
Here.
Hubbard. Here. Paulson. 5 present.
Okay, and the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. Next item is the sign design review for Dollar General. Formerly it was Family Video 5430 Century Avenue. So is Daphne here or who is going to
No,
present?
I'm
Okay.
covering everything.
Okay, all right, so go ahead.
So, as you mentioned, this is the former family video location. Aren't planning any modifications to the building. They just would like to place their signs. There are 2 facade signs, one generally visible to westbound traffic and the other to the left visible to eastbound traffic. Our Public Works city engineer has a comment about the proposed sign that would be in the monument sign that would be in the right-of-way. And the concern there is that we have an existing easement that, and this was something that came up late. Let me see if I can find that quickly. I had the file, but.
While you're doing this, this is the sign, the pole sign that we have in our packet,
Right.
the green pole.
Yeah, and I'd asked them to replace the pole, and they've been willing to do that. Replacing it because our ordinance prefers or states that ground signs are what our ordinance allows. And so, this is the easement that I pulled up. Go. So you can see the front here in pink is the utility easement. And so our city engineer has pointed out that this is actually an easement that benefits the Westport sewer utility, not even the cities. So we need to coordinate with them to make sure that this is an acceptable location. So they recommended deferring of that sign, and I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to mention that to the applicants today. This was kind of a last-minute issue that came up. So,
Could it
we are
be-
recommending the approval of the 2 facade signs and the deferral of the monument sign, although I think personally really like it.
Could we approve the monument sign
With a condition-
contingent on satisfaction of the easement with
Proper placement.
the city engineer?
It's fine with me.
I think that's probably the way to go.
I wasn't making a motion, I was just saying that's probably a better way to go.
What do you think, Eddie?
I second it.
Okay,
There you go. I guess it was a motion.
What's a motion?
The applicants are here.
yeah. So do you guys want to say something?
What was the concern of the city?
Yeah,
at this point?
okay, Mark, go ahead and,
It's that there's this easement that, if you look on the screen, there's an easement that is probably 10 feet wide that runs along the entire front of the property. And so the concern was that the base of the sign that did not interfere with the sewer that's in that easement, that we believe is in the easement. We need to do a little more investigation to make sure that there's no conflict. So the existing pole sign, it's a little hard to see, but I presume it's right here.
Yeah, it's
The
just outside.
The existing pole sign, the pole itself is at the 10-foot mark from the inside edge of the sidewalk, so right at where your easement line is,
So
so.
by going to this monument sign, which is what I encouraged you to do, that's causing the encroachment.
Right, yeah, like I say, right where the leading edge of that, it's a 9-inch diameter pole, that's that 10-foot mark right there. So depending what staff does with that, I mean, I have on occasions, what we really had intended to do was to utilize that existing pole just for the infrastructure, so we didn't have to auger. I have had cities work with me where I could place a sign there until they had a need for that and move it at that time at our expense. But we can work with staff moving forward on that.
You
That's
you
okay.
can keep the pole, and then the monument is just a wrap of the pole. You don't have to dig.
Correct. We were going to offset that. Originally, when I spoke with Mark, was the request was to be 7 feet back from the sidewalk. So the new request would be another 3 feet back, which then would render that pole
No big deal, so,
useless to us.
yeah, that's not a big deal, I guess you can handle it.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because we talked first a few weeks ago, which is jogging my memory now. The 7-foot request, the reason for that, Daphne did the comments, and I think I must not have flagged that for her. We are planning eventually to have the North Mendota Trail running here, so in anticipation of that, I wanted to make sure that the sign was set back far enough so it wouldn't have to be moved. So the sidewalk will be replaced with a 10-foot wide path. That's the 7 feet that he's describing. But in the meantime, this easement has surfaced, and I'm sorry that I didn't catch that in the initial review. And so if the motion is to allow us to work with the applicant to suitably place the sign, I think that's workable.
Yes.
Yeah,
And sometimes we require a license agreement to have something in an easement. We also need to work with Westport because it's their sewer that run. This part of the city is served by the town of Westport.
And
So we can work with staff at that point.
And the issue is, I mean, for us as a plan commission, it's the placement relative to,
And
and
the
the sign.
design.
You know, it's, whether there's an easement there or not is really up to the engineer or whoever owns the easement. So, yeah, I would make sure the motion reflects, applicant will work with staff. What's the best way to say it? To resolve the, outstanding issues with regard to the easement.
how about Jennifer, any questions?
No.
Kitty,
No.
Dan?
Good.
And Leaf, you're happy, okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, so the motion passes
And sir, what was your
unanimously.
name for the minutes?
Bob Kraus with Bauer Sign Company.
Oh, you're Bob, okay.
Yes. And Marcus, you were-
KRA,
Kraus.
thank you.
And you're the regional manager of Dollar General. Okay.
Well, I'll just.
Can I work with,
There you go.
start with you, Mark, on that?
Yeah,
as far
that'd be
as
fine, we
placement?
can follow up tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next one is item number 3.
You can go.
That
Alcohol
was
and tobacco.
earlier, that was at 6.
Oh, I did come in, I was told I'd come back at 7.
You asked me about the council meeting.
Dollar General, well, I said I was here for Dollar General.
Okay, I didn't.
Oh, you're here for liquor license.
Right.
Well, I misunderstood your request, so sorry about that.
Oh, that's fine. So just come back next, I won't be able to come next week, I'll be out of town.
Which, I mean, Dan, what was it for?
We would like, if you won't be able to come back next,
I'm going out of country, vacation. I have to see if I can get somebody else to come in.
yeah, we approved you for a license for malted beverages and wine only, not for liquor.
Okay.
But we did have some questions, so we would like somebody to come to our next meeting so we could ask you a few questions. Could you make that happen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, appreciate that, thank you.
And I'm sorry, when I heard you say Dollar General, I knew it was at 7 o'clock. I
Oh,
didn't
okay.
realize it was on the 6 o'clock agenda, so my apologies.
L&O versus Plan Commission.
Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Have to buy him an ice cream or something.
Item number 3, sign design review. This is the Goban Car, 7613 Century Avenue. Mark?
Yep. It's been a while since I've run the computer here. So, Gobin is, the applicant is here, Jeff is here representing the applicant, Jeff Zollner. They're requesting 2 retaining walls, signs on the corners of their property, 19.5 square feet each. There's 2 frontages, so Daphne felt that this, and I agree with her, that that we can approve 2 signs of this type because of the 2 street frontages as allowed by our ordinance. And then she is recommending approval of both retaining wall signs.
I think it makes sense Yes, and well, do you want to present anything? Otherwise, I make a motion to approve, so.
No, I'm here with Sign Art Studio. I don't need to present anything unless you guys have further questions. I'm happy to come up.
I do have one question, and that is this monument sign in the middle. Sorry, Jeff, did I identify you for the wrong one? Sorry, you said the third one.
That's all right. I'm Luke with Sign Art Studio.
So
The monument sign in the center has been removed from the plan.
that's what I wanted to double check.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, I think what I have seen looks good. I make a motion to approve. Need a second?
Second.
Okay. Any question? Let's have a discussion now. Kitty?
Who seconded?
One of many.
One of them.
Any, I think it looks very nice, so.
I don't see anything that's an issue. It seems that it's very subtle and it's still something that people can see when they are approaching, and it's really well done.
Jennifer?
Yeah, I like it. I like how it blends in with the landscape design.
Dan? Kurt or?
Works for me.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve the sign design review of Goban Car 7613 Century Avenue, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Item number 4. Specific implementation plan modification for sign design review Cardinal Row Apartments, 2317 Parmenter. Now that's you.
This is Jeff Zollner.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Sorry for
yes.
getting mixed up. So there's one comment in addition to what's in your packet. Our city engineer apparently has heard feedback from the fire department that they are confused about or they would like to see an address incorporated into the sign, a street number. And so that is an addition, that is an opportunity here to add a street number so that it's clear.
What if we would put one on the building,
Well, I think.
just a big address
Once
number?
it's visible, yeah.
Yeah. There's so much going on the sign, it might be tight to find one big enough to put the numbers on the sign itself. So we find a place in the building facing Parmenter?
Would that,
I think if we approve, we might make it condition on the fire department accepting it,
I think so.
because they need,
Yep.
they have the final say on those
No,
things.
I agree with you because that is
Right,
an
yep.
issue, so. Okay, well, Kitty, Jennifer, any?
Seems good.
Okay, I make a motion to approve
With that condition?
with a condition, absolute condition,
I
yes.
have one question. How is the sign lit?
It's not gonna be lit at this time, so we're just no, it's just,
Okay.
yeah.
Any other questions to these folks?
I didn't hear who seconded it.
I'll second.
I think it was Kitty or Jennifer,
I
but.
just didn't hear it.
Oh,
Get
okay.
in or whatever.
So to approve the monument sign, but without adding the address?
No,
on the
no.
sign?
To require
To the
that,
satisfaction of the fire department, whatever
I'll meet with the owner tomorrow and discuss what was said tonight, and I'll present something over to the fire department, and then Mark, I can meet with you
That's
and
fine.
say this is what they approved on, and that that's would work.
I mean, with the understanding that if they don't approve it on the building,
Right.
you'll have to put it on the sign.
Correct.
Everybody happy with that? Okay, the motion is to approve the SIP modification for sign design review of Cardinal Row Apartments, 2317 Parmenter Street, with a understanding that they're going to talk to the fire department and make sure that they're happy with it and come up with a amicable solution. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. We are on to item number 5.
Thank you.
A lot of signs tonight.
Specific implementation plan modification for sign design review, Milton Center, 45510 Hubbard Avenue.
So this sign, I don't think anybody's here. Are you here for this sign? Oh, you are? Okay. Oh, there you are. I didn't. So this would be located roughly on this wall, roughly where the banner is, right? And we gave them some feedback that the sign that was in your packet had sort of an imbalanced design between the T-Wall Enterprises and the leasing component. So they revised the design and it looks more like,
What you see here?
well, no, it
Don't
looks
tell me
like,
they made the T-wall bigger.
they did a little bit. It looks,
No.
so the T-Wall Enterprises is slightly larger, and then they slightly reduced the leasing, so it's a little bit more balanced, so it's a line change. So that's how it looks compared, if you want, I can show you the one before, but this is the new design.
Same location? Is that kind of temporary sign?
You want to come here and please go and identify yourself and answer?
Yeah, Nick Patterson.
Okay, yeah, go to the mic.
What was your question?
It's in the same location as
The banner that's there
the
now.
temporary banner that's there now?
Yes, yep.
Okay, any more other questions, Nick?
Is the banner the same size as this? 10 feet by 4 feet?
So the permanent sign will be slightly larger. I believe it's 43 square foot is what it'll be.
Mhm.
How big do you think that banner is that's up there right now?
Honestly, I don't know. So I'm actually just filling in for a coworker that couldn't make it today, so I don't have all the exact details on it. But I know the sign that we're proposing is 43 square foot.
Okay.
Comparing it to the window above it, those windows are probably, I don't know what to guess, but, well,
About
you
20?
guess, I don't want to guess.
Well, it looks proportional
Yeah.
to the rest of the.
Okay.
If this were B3, which I think it was prior.
Before.
Before?
Before.
Before, okay. What would it be within the size requirements?
Well, what's unusual about this is that it doesn't face the street technically. It's obviously meant to be seen from the street, but it doesn't face the street. So our ordinance under B4 zoning, our standard sign code, obviously zone PDD, so there's flexibility here.
Yes, Katie?
The window, I think all these statements you're making are really valid. The window, I would guess, looks to be about 3 by 6. And if a sign is going to be 43 square feet, we're probably talking 4 by 10-ish.
Mm.
It's going to be a lot bigger.
Yep, yep.
And it's, just looking at if it's pretty much in keeping with what was there, I'm kind of surprised that we have to have something that's like 12 inches tall that says shop, dine, eat, you know, as opposed to just being an identification of the building and the phone number and the location, the address or something, you know, or the.
Yeah, so it would obviously be a marketing tool as well, but also to identify that little corner where you go into the parking garage, be able to identify that too, because that
Well,
sneak up on you.
I think what we typically are looking for is to not have advertising so much as identification. And this thing is hit you between the eyes, advertising, you know, and it's nice design, you know, nice balance, but it's a little bit too big, and it's, don't we have a regulation that limits the size? Oh, you said it shouldn't even be there,
Well,
right?
our
Mark?
standard sign code orients facade signs to the street. But with PDD zoning, we've got flexibility to have signs be placed elsewhere. In the applicant's defense, the original request was this. If you want to pass it down there, I don't have that on the screen, but it had a list of all the tenants.
Oh,
And I felt that I gave them the feedback that it looked a bigger sign and it was a little too busy with all the down there. I think that's what you're getting at in terms of an identification sign.
yeah.
I do want to caution that it's not, the city should not be in the business of regulating the content of a sign because of a Supreme Court case in Arizona from
Okay.
half a decade ago. So the issue that before you is really the design and placement of the sign. I mean, the aesthetics of it, where it's placed and how it fits into the building, all that is appropriate.
Well, I think the location is, to me, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I think it's not offensive. It's probably the right place for it, but 4 by 10 is pretty huge. And I guess I'd rather see it not get any bigger than a window, like somebody mentioned. a 3x6-ish. But I don't know where you guys are.
That's an awfully big one, but a 3x6, I don't think you'd be able to read anything off of it.
Point. Good point.
Will it be placed,
I like the idea.
like, this current banner is like 2/3 above that banding and 1/3 below? Is that where it's gonna be placed, or?
I can't say exactly if it'll be right in the exact spot that it is right now, but I know approximate.
Does it
You're going to try to sort of centralize it, now it's just in the corner.
Might have been nice to have.
You are going to centralize it, or,
It says center on building, it says.
oh, okay.
on building, so that'd be in the middle? The,
Might be nice to have a graphic that actually shows it
Where it's going to
where
go.
and how big.
Shame you got that
proportion to the-
exhaust vent there.
Or maybe it's a light, I don't know.
Actually get a view of.
yeah, Kurt and Leaf, you might have missed that, the application says center on.
Yeah.
So it may not be right where that.
I took it
band
to
is.
mean vertically centered, that's how I took that, but I can see what you mean, that it could mean left to right, but that wouldn't make sense from what they're trying to do.
They're trying to,
I take that as, so the first story, it would be centered on the first story there and to avoid those events right there,
Hmm.
if that helps.
Who put that?
So do we want to approve with making sure the staff does some of the background work to make sure that it's properly centered and looks appropriate?
What is the sign made out of?
Honestly, I'm sorry, I can't tell you the exact material. I don't want to tell you the wrong material and then it end up being something else.
So is it then, do we want to defer it and deal it with the next one?
I would assume it's like their other signs that have that metal, it's like a,
It's like brush nickel or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Just for reference, Mark, what would be a facade sign size limit in a B4 district?
It's based, our facade signs are proportional to the facade length of so for example, what you do is you take the frontage facing the street, in this case Elmwood, if you imagine the Elmwood frontage, that whole, let's call that 100 feet, it's more than that, probably 125 feet, whatever, you would be allowed a sign of 25 feet per, square feet.
125 square feet.
Square feet.
Okay.
In this case, there's not a frontage facing a street, so it's hard to answer your question. As long as it's proportional to the building, that would really be the overriding design concern. I personally having lived near here for a couple of years, I find this facade to be a bit stark because there's not really much on it. So in some ways, I think a sign could actually help break that, add a little bit of interest, if you will, as long as it's a well-designed sign. So I didn't have a concern about where they wanted to place it. I just was concerned that they were proposing a sign that had a lot of small letters for the different businesses, and I didn't think that would be visible, and I didn't want to create a traffic, someone's driving and then stops on the street to see if there's, I didn't want to have that happen. So that's why they went to a simpler design with the shop, Dine Relax motif.
Okay, so do we want to approve with the condition that they work with the staff? Or do we want them to come back?
Approval?
Okay,
Second.
and with the condition that they work with the staff to, or you are okay with the way it is? Pardon me?
For what reason?
You had a couple of questions about the material and how it's centered.
I guess if the material is, yeah, my concern about the material was more about durability and changeability, if it would be permanent,
Okay,
So, I mean, it's going to be a permanent sign. though. I don't know if they would need to come to staff. I don't know.
Okay, okay, all right. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion to approve the SIP modification for sign design review for Milton Center 4551 Hubbard Avenue, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion passes. Okay, so for the next two items, there's a deferral, and, but we have Dr. John Dennison, he's the site in charge for PPD, and he would like to make some comments before we proceed further. So do you want to go ahead and, John, do that?
For what? Hold on a second, for what now?
If we're
these are
deferring an
the-
item,
Next two items, so you want to defer them?
well, if we're deferring an item at the request of the applicant, I'm not sure we can actually
Do any business.
do any business on it.
No, we couldn't have any comments?
Should have been at the beginning. Public comment.
Yeah.
We're deferring the item,
We're
let's
not-
gotta wait till,
Well, Plan Commission doesn't have a public comment section.
We're just making sure that we're following the open meetings law as to
Well,
the applicant to have a chance to,
the way I noticed this, I mean, we didn't amend the agenda to remove it from the agenda.
so it's noticed as an agenda
It's
item.
noticed as an agenda item. So because it was less than 24 hours before the meeting, felt it was not, we can't add things to an agenda, less than
Right,
24
right.
hours, but I didn't want to take the time to amend it well, it's not that I didn't want to take the time, I just felt the same principles, I didn't want to amend an agenda within 24 hours of a meeting. So if somebody's coming for this item, we tried to provide notice today that the intent is to defer it tonight. Obviously, it's up to the
I
body
think it's
and
up
the
to the
chairman.
chair to make a ruling
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, so I don't have any problem, so,
And what's his name?
John Dennison.
My name is John Dennison.
Okay.
President of PPD?
So I'm a senior vice president at PPD, but I'm also the site head for the Middleton facility here. And I'm a Middleton resident. I've lived here for 21 years, so it was interesting to see all of the discussion about the signs. I appreciate an opportunity to speak with all of you tonight. I hope you're all aware of PPD in terms of Middleton's largest employer. We now employ 1,700 people at our facilities in Middleton. Our largest facility is on Research Way, where we have 1,550 employees currently. And just last week, I became aware of, for the first time, this Greenway Properties proposal to put a 14-story apartment building on the bluff right behind our main facility. And I was so shocked by the size of that proposal and the impact that it would have on our facility that again, I'm just pleased to have an opportunity to come here and express this to the council and express PPD's opposition to a building of that size going on that piece of property. And really, the reasons for my objections are threefold. Probably the most significant, at least near term, is the impact on traffic. And I don't know if any of you have driven on Pleasant View Road going north or south at between 3:30 p.m. and 5:30 p.m.
Yeah.
But it is just horrendous. And a lot of that is due to PPD employees. All we have is Market Street to the east and Quarry Road to the west to get our 1,550 employees out during that time period. So many of them funnel onto Pleasant View Road. And you have the Cenex, you have vehicles coming out of the quarry, big dump trucks. You've got the golf course traffic in summer with all the outings that they have. So sometimes you can wait at Quarry Road to turn left or right onto Pleasant View for 5 or 10 minutes per car. So knowing then that someone is proposing adding an additional several hundred cars onto Pleasant View Road, people leaving in the morning and coming home at night, it's just going to make a bad situation even worse. And I know that widening of Pleasant View is in the plan, but from what I understand, realistically, the north end is probably 2023 or potentially even later. So we would have several years of really a bad traffic situation if this construction were to take place. The second concern I have is much of our facility is built into essentially the crater from an old quarry. So even outside of my office window, only about 20 to 30 yards away is a 3 to 4 story high rock wall. And then this bluff and this potential 14-story apartment building would sit atop that. So I am not exaggerating. Quite literally, the sun would be blocked out from the south side of our facility for probably 4 to 5 months each year. We would not see it. So, and we have significant parking back there, hundreds of cars parked back there. And then many of our laboratories and offices, that's the only window they have, is that south-facing window. So from ice and snow perspective in winter, it would, melting obviously would be very restricted without any sunshine on it. But more importantly, aesthetically, it would just really change dramatically the quality of life our employees would feel in much of our facility, because we'd have this, huge building on the south side. The third concern is much more immediate. I believe they're proposing that they're going to blast into that quarry rock 3 stories down. And our facility, we essentially do testing of pharmaceuticals. And so we test the purity and potency and make sure they meet the manufacturer's specifications. We have hundreds of millions of dollars of very sensitive scientific instruments within our buildings. And we know from the quarry on the west side of Pleasant View Road, that blasting, we know it disturbs our instruments. Now, fortunately, that quarry owner has been very good. He's been a very good neighbor. They only blast 2 or 3 times a year, and they give us several hours warning of when they're going to do it. So we can bring down all of our instruments so that they're not damaged, or that we're not collecting data then that's not usable. So that has worked out fine, but knowing that that level of blasting and the shaking that we feel in our buildings and the impact it has on our instruments, knowing that that is going to be right behind us, the economic consequence to us really is going to be significant. We're going to have to shut down, several days for a significant portion of the day. And our facility does about $1.2 million a day in revenue. So a significant shutdown really impacts us.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
We had heard testimony somewhat to that effect, and certainly Terrence Wall, who used to own the property, emailed us. I think he emailed all of us about that same concern months ago. We talked about it months ago, about the blasting and PPD's instruments. I'm just trying to figure out why no one reached out to you 4 or 5 months ago when this was all being proposed. Did we ask the applicant to meet with them?
This was one of the conditions which I have asked the staff to talk to the those condos and PPD. I did ask them, and I was told that
talk to you.
So
I was told that they did, but apparently they didn't, or at least from what
I've been trying to investigate that in preparation for this meeting tonight. And what I have found out is I believe the construction company of, the owner of this proposed property reached out to a low-level employee within our facilities group and really did not outline the full scope of the project. Certainly it was not a 14-story apartment building that was presented to them. It was
I think we requested that the applicant meet. Is my memory wrong? I don't remember the minutes, but.
The other component is our facility on Research Way, even though it's very large and very customized for us, it's a leased facility. And it's quite possible that Greenway Properties tried to contact the company that owns it as IRA, and they're a real estate trust based in Los Angeles. So we have really even no way to know if they were contacted.
So Mark, could we find out who was contacted?
I'm sure it was the property owner,
Okay.
like he described. I can see if it's
Okay,
in our
anyway,
file.
we will look into it but at Plan Commission meeting, the first time or second time they brought it here, I had told them very clearly they were supposed to contact those condos on the wireless condos and then PPD, because I know the PPD is the largest employer for Middleton, and we wanted to make sure that everything, that you were happy with it. So,
appreciate that.
and to find out, well, anyway, we're going to look into it, So any other questions which you might have for Dr. Dennison?
So a relevant point for the council to consider is, as I said, we're a leased facility. Our lease is up in 2028. And if we find that the quality of our facility has significantly declined due to this property, it certainly would force us to look at alternatives.
Appreciate you taking the time to come forward and.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dennison, and we're going to find out what happened there, and these comments will be considered, and I will certainly let you know, staff will let you know when it is on the agenda. Well, it will be on April whatever, so.
All right.
April
And
14th.
if the council recommends that I
Yep.
come for that meeting, I'd be happy to appear.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right,
Really
thank you.
appreciate
Thank
that.
you for
Have a
the
great evening.
So a motion to defer would be appropriate.
Okay.
Could I make two comments here
Yours? Go ahead.
before we defer it?
Yep, go ahead.
Number one is the point I made a little earlier about the fact that the stormwater situation seems to have been addressed very fully, and it's come round to a very logical point of view. Running the stormwater and the sanitary water and bringing water up from Pleasant View Road, I gather there's a lot of behind the scenes that has gone on related to that. But what it's doing regarding stormwater is addressing the northern 2/3 of the site. And we have still to address the southern third of the site. And what we need to do is look at the same kind of solutions. There's nothing wrong with the two things in particular, which are the detention basins. Why not put some small detention basins on the south and southeast side so that Casablanca doesn't get water dumped down into any further water than they've already got, which is a problem, number one. And number two, why not consider some of the storm drain trenches? Now, I don't know if you guys had the time to look at it, but when we received this packet on Friday night, there were a lot of site plans that were revised in the packet, and they show some trenching designs and some detention basins on the north end that have been added and changed relative to what we had seen before. Now, a lot of the trenching and the one storm detention basin are off on the northeast side, and that seems to be addressing the city's conservancy issues. So I'm gathering that that all came about because we're trying to protect the city's conservancy path especially now that we've pulled all this sanitary water and potential storm water out of the conservancy. Why not do the same thing on the south and protect Casabella? That's all I'm saying. That's number one. And there's a couple of points in there related to the engineering staff comments, satisfaction thereof, and so on. The other one is the bird collision mitigation strategies. We talked about that at our last meeting 2 weeks ago. What we said was we wanted them to pursue it, the bird mitigation strategies. We did not say we wanted that to be a requirement of new buildings, especially not of some that have already been designed. We should not be forcing new design requirements on a building, number one. And number two, like I said in that meeting, I had a lot of issues with bird mitigation strategies versus the lead design requirements. Should somebody be pursuing having improved environmental status? Meaning, for example, one of the things that the bird mitigation policy that they brought to us 2 weeks ago said no more than 25% of a exterior surface should have windows in it so that birds aren't going to be running into it. That's the opposite of what you want in a sustainable building, because what you want is something above benchtop height for windows, running as much as you can up to the ceiling, and that's what you do so that you allow people to have light daylighting penetrating into the building where it's usable, and so people don't have to turn on the electricity and use power for normal everyday life, and you only use task lighting when you need it. There's a lot of things like that. Anyway, the point is, I don't think we should be attaching a bird collision mitigation strategy as a requirement, it says, to be incorporated into the building. That's not acceptable, in my opinion. Maybe the one point, which is no more reflective mirror glass windows, but most of the rest of those things, I think, require a lot of consideration before it becomes a requirement.
Yeah, and in relation to the stormwater, I'm not really, issues were fully addressed. So the first, nobody even wanted to make a motion, and somebody did make a motion, nobody wanted to second it. And even when you read some of those minutes, they actually did put conditions that by digging a hole and, it should be pursued just to see that whether what's proposed will work. So I think it's set up.
Meaning at Water Resources or Conservancy Land?
Water Sources Management Commission, yeah. I happen to be there, so. Okay, well, anyway, you're recording those comments, and are we ready to, any other comments?
Basically, I'm reflecting that Kitty talked about concerns with the stormwater management plan and opportunity to better protect Bella Casa condos, and then that you expressed concern about striking the proper balance between bird collision mitigation strategies and lead design.
Yeah, but why don't we say, and environmentally sound design, or some other terminology, because if they just say they don't want to pursue lead, then that blows it away, and we do want.
And you said you don't think it's acceptable to require bird collision mitigation strategies.
Correct. Yes, sir.
I don't think they're pursuing lead.
I don't either.
They certainly would have told us that up front.
Yeah, I don't think we need to make them do it. I think what I'm saying, though, is if we were to incorporate it as a requirement, which we shouldn't do in a building that's already designed, if we were to do it in the future, it shouldn't be in lieu of.
But it's not
I don't
approved
think
yet.
the building's,
Design principles.
I don't think the
relative to
building's designed yet.
environmental- Excuse me?
I don't think the building's designed yet, because they don't even have zoning approval, so they probably haven't designed the building. They've just sketched it out.
They've been publishing designs of the building for a long time.
Sketches.
Sketches.
No, they're
They're pretty-
elevations and floor plans, and we received 172 pages
yeah,
of design. It's past the schematic design point. It's certainly into design development phase. They've put a lot of money into
In their
designing
mind,
this thing.
but we've not even given concept approval, right?
I don't believe so, but I didn't check the record.
So Mark, if you want to add, I want to make sure that the stormwater issues are addressed and resolved before we go further.
I reflected, well, I could say that usually.
Okay,
Need a motion to defer.
need a motion to defer.
Motion to defer?
Okay. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion to defer 6 and 7, both, right?
Yep. Correct.
Say aye. Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. Need a motion to
Can I
adjourn.
just reflect that you made the separate motion?
Yes,
rather than-
separate
Oh,
motions,
okay.
that's fine.
A separate motion for what?
Well,
Defer each one of them.
Item number 6 and 7.
Since they're listed separately on the agenda, I'll just have the same motion.
deferred them separately.
Yep.
Okay, motion to defer, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye, so we are
Aye.
adjourned. Thank you.